Welcome to my channel, and I want to start this year talking about a book. One of the books that I actually read at the end of last year, and this is the one here, Midlife, a Philosophical Guide. The author is Kiran Setia, and the author is actually a professor at the MIT, and he's a professor of philosophy. It's funny, I didn't know that there was a chair of philosophy at MIT. Well, look, I am living my midlife, right? As many of you are, and I've been very interested with this topic because once you pass 40, and I passed 40 a few years ago, actually, you start seeing things with the different eyes, the different lenses, right? And things that were important to you in the past are not so important anymore, and vice versa, right? Um, what I really like about this book is the fact that it was written by a philosopher. And philosophy is one of my passions, is one of the core elements of my YouTube channel here. So I think there's a lot of wisdom we can get from philosophy and a lot of practical wisdom as well. So it's not only that we stay here in our minds, but it's something that we can use and apply in our day to day to live a better life. So go back to my notes here because I think this book and I don't want this video to be, you know, it's not going to be a comprehensive review of the book because there's so much that can be said. But I want to provide you a couple of very interesting insights that I got, right? Uh, One of the lessons is what it's called, the author actually gives a different name, but to me, it's the happiness paradox. And this lesson comes from the English philosopher, 19th century English philosopher, John Stuart Mill. And I call this the happiness paradox. And you might have felt that in your life, you might have seen that in others as well. The more we get focused on the idea of searching and finding and obtaining happiness, the less we get it, right? So it's the happiness paradox. If you are so focused and you can only look at happiness as your end goal, and you do everything you can to attain that goal, you end up not being happy at all. So it is a paradox, right? And this whole reflection that look, uh, maybe there's a middle ground. Maybe there's a middle ground where I try to live a healthy life, a life of well being, a life of purpose, and a life of serving others, a life of putting my talents to the service of society, putting my talents to the service of my work, of my community, with the idea that happiness is the end goal. And it will eventually become a reality, but it's not something that I am thinking about every single day, right? So that would be my invitation to us all to try to find the middle ground and a healthier, establishing a healthier relationship with this very important topic, which is the topic of happiness. Um, the other thing, the other reflection he brings, and some of those reflections come from the fact that John Stuart Mill was a genius. He was truly a genius. He wrote so many books, and he he had amazing accomplishments in his life. He was an author, he was a philosopher, he was a teacher, professor at universities and stuff like that. But very young in his life, he had a breakdown and he had a serious crisis. And he came out of the crisis with those insights, those reflections. That's why I feel to me they are so valuable because it's based on a real person, a real story, and a real breakdown. The other reflection is that we need to create space in our lives with existential value. And what I mean by existential is that they have value in themselves. Hobbies, practice sports, contemplation, meditation, Uh, do nothing. Sit in a park bench and do nothing. Just pay attention to the birds, pay attention to the nature, be grateful for being alive, look at the sky. Uh, Friendship. Take time to be with your friends, quality time to be with your friends. So these are activities that have value in themselves. They don't have an end goal attached to them, right? Because the reflection here, it's, and I noticed that in my life. I'm pretty sure you are probably identifying this thing in your own life, is that we get so addicted in this modern society with doing things that have an end goal. So I'm always thinking about doing something because I need to complete that activity. We are so task oriented that our life becomes a big task. Our life becomes a list that we need to complete the activities, the checklist. And it becomes boring, and it becomes something that doesn't have the magic. It doesn't have the wonder. It doesn't have that sense of purpose, that sense of mission, of doing more of. It doesn't bring me any kind of healthy states such as flow, the flow state. So we need to create space in our lives for activities that have existential value. Existential value. And by the way, if you want to start with something, sports are a great practice, meditation, as I said, and all the other examples I just mentioned. To me, one watch out here, and this is more like my reflection, is to find activities that have existential value and are healthy, activities that will promote and will develop our virtues instead of being activities that, feed my ego or feed my narcissistic or hedonistic trends. By the way, you can click on the link here and see my previous video about this topic, about narcissism and hedonism. The video is in Portuguese, but you can here you can activate your caps or your closed captions in English. Another important reflection of the book is the fear of missing out. And I can identify with that because I noticed as I got older, past my 40s, I was like, what if my life was different? What if I had chosen a different profession? What if I had lived in a different country? All those choices we make when we are younger, and it puts us in a track where we are committed to a certain type of life. And there's the fear of missing out. There is something that we all have. But I think the author's point here is beautiful and is beautifully written, which is about like, what if the life we have now is already the best possible life we could have? Right? So that's a very philosophical question. And I could look at this and say, yes, if I had made a different professional choice or multiple choices in my life, I would have a different life. But what assures me that that life would be better? Maybe this is the best version I have. And the other thing is that with all the benefits and the upsides and the downsides of my current life, I have certainty, I have commitment. So I know that I can count on my loved ones. I know I can count on my partner. I know I can count on my daughters, right? These are things that only come if you commit to your life, if you attach yourself to something, right? There's another philosopher, Zygmunt Bauman, that defined the term that the modern life is liquid. And he makes a distinction between liquids, which is the moments we are living, the current society. Nobody wants to commit with anything. People usually, they don't want to commit with a relationship because they want to keep all their options open. Versus in the past, when people had commitments and he claims that was like a solid society. Now we are living in liquid society, which feels like water and it's very liquid, but you don't have the commitment. So the point is like, yes, you keep your options open, but at the same time, you don't choose anything. Therefore, you are actually not living. You are not living. You are not committing yourself. So the way to live is to commit yourself and move forward. So look, there's much more insights from this beautiful book here, but I strongly recommend, particularly if you are like me, if you are in that stage of life, and if you were looking at your future with that perspective, trying to get different ways of looking at your life, trying to build new possibilities. I mean, at the same time, like midlife today, well, it means we still have hopefully many years and decades ahead of us. What do you want to do with the next half of your life, right? That's the key question, and I think this book can really help you. Subscribe here in my channel, leave your comments. You can find me on social media as well, and stay in touch. Feel free to share the video, to like the video. Have a wonderful week ahead. Thank you.